And a good evening and welcome to another edition of the virtual Tack Room on this Saturday night, May the 23rd. I'm Lee Drake, one of the co-hosts on the program for you tonight. Another action-packed show with you for the next hour and a half or so. So we want you to sit back and relax. And really, it was quite a day today. You know, we talked the last number of weeks on this show about qualifying day coming up, and of course, on our way to live race day on June the 4th. But we get through qualifying day today, and I just want to say right off the top of the show tonight, on behalf of everyone at Red Shores and the harness racing community, hats off to the harness racing community today who executed really flawlessly coming into the track today and getting the qualifiers through. It was really well done. It just shows the amount of respect that you do have for the protocols. And I want to also do a shout out to Adam Walsh and Tara Polton Myers and all the people that were on site here today, all the management team, of course, security, track crew, you name it, anyone in the race office. That was there today because they did their jobs and it really showed today. And I know a lot of the harness racing community were watching today. So, some really good news on that. And also, this past week, you've heard some other announcements. Harness Racing New Brunswick, our friends in New Brunswick, they're getting the green light to go racing coming up on June the 6th. I know a lot of hard work happening right now in Nova Scotia as well. And there'll be some other news coming out of there with their tracks. So we anticipate and look forward to some information. But I have to say this today, I think was a true testament that the harness racing community really shows what they're all about. That they take it seriously. They know that these protocols that were rolled out by Red Shores, we were getting them, of course, from the Department of Health and the Public Health Office, who continue to do an incredible job. And it doesn't matter which jurisdiction you're in, you really have to follow those and don't take it lightly. And I think as one description was given to me this week was a little bit of short-term pain for some long-term gain, and that's the way to do it. So anyway, virtual tack room tonight. Our show sponsor tonight, you'll see coming up on your screen in just a minute, is Stow It All. Charlottetown and Fredericton locations. Special thank you to Sean McIsaac and Kent Ronahan. Of course, no strangers to the harness racing community. As a matter of fact, over to my left here, I have a picture of Sean McIsaac, one of the many photos I have on my wall when he was past president of the Atlantic Sire Stakes. So really appreciate the support of the virtual tack room tonight. We have a very busy program with Darren Crowe coming up on the show tonight, along with Mike McGuigan, Curt Hughes, and Dave Kelly. We're going to check in with him out in Alberta. Time to bring in my co-hosts for this evening's virtual tack room, and going out to Cornwall tonight, and from my Red Shores broadcast team as well, Peter McPhee. Good evening, Peter.
Hi, Lee and Jerry and Kent. Great to be back on the show. Lee, it was just great to watch online today, those live qualifiers. 9 races. Everybody did a great job, as you mentioned, and everything looked great online, looked great at the track, Lee. So 3 more qualifying dates to come, and then we go to that June 4th date we're all waiting for. So, Lee, look forward to that. Great job today by everyone, and hope we have a great show tonight.
Thank you, Peter. Over to Jerry McCabe, who's in on the virtual tack room tonight. And I know, Jerry, you've mentioned it before, the countdown of getting to this point, but boy, it sure was great to see them horses lining up behind the Metro Home Building Center starting gate today.
Definitely, Lee. Long wait to get to this day and very exciting. Hard to believe 2.5 months ago we were going to get to this day or not, but sure great seeing it. We're looking forward to some warmer weather in the near future and 3 more qualifying sessions and live racing before we know it. Looking forward to another awesome show tonight. We got some great guests lined up and can't wait to get down memory lane with them.
All right, thank you, Jerry. And over to Ken Oakes, the show creator. And he was not only joining us on the show tonight on the virtual tack room, but he was in the paddock today. I know his son Nick was qualifying some horses and joins us back on the show tonight. Good evening, Kent.
Good evening, guys, and certainly echo your comments on a great show by all the Red Shore staff, and particularly the horse people of PEI for their great cooperation and safely presenting the qualifiers today. I just want to quickly give a shout out to a couple of the Red Shore staff who I saw were really busy as beavers down there. Were Ann, Charlotte, and Nancy doing a lot of the cleaning down in the paddock. They did a great job. Good to see Brody McPhee back in the bike. Some impressive performances by a lot of horses there today. And I'd like to give a recognition to the winner of the first qualifier today, Windermere Don't You Worry, the trotter, owned by a predecessor of mine and yours on the Standard Canada board, Lee, Eric Johnson. And I would think this is probably at least Eric's seventh decade as an owner. So I just wanted to say a shout out to Eric.
Wonderful. Great way to kick off a show tonight. Kent, thank you for those comments. And yeah, we do have an action-packed show tonight, as we said, and we're going to bring in our first guest tonight. We're going to Nova Scotia. He's certainly no stranger to us. We even had stopped by his location on the way to Cape Breton just recently. And but he's an owner, trainer, driver. He's been along around this industry for many years, and it's great to have Darren Crowe on with us tonight from Nova Scotia. Good evening, Darren.
Hey, guys.
So Darren, it's great to have you. Before we get into some of the many questions that we have for you tonight, and also some great videos, we always like to start the show with just to ask you and how you and your family have been doing over the last number of weeks.
We're doing good. We're getting through everything. It's been a little bit of a rough go here in Nova Scotia, but everything seems to have settled out now, and things are going ahead.
When we talk about your commitment in harness racing and certainly your investment as well that we've seen, and we're going to get to a few of the videos and some of those great photos that we've had in our photo parade here. Let's bring you back to the viewers that are maybe joining us tonight through UMI Sports on Facebook, or also our redshores.ca platform as well. How did Darren Crowe get introduced to the harness racing industry?
Well, that was a few years ago. My best friend owned a dairy farm, and I kind of grew up on the dairy farm just up the road from my house. And his dad and his grandfather were involved in standardbreds. Gordon Dickey was his grandfather. He campaigned a lot of horses with the prefix Cobequid in front of them. And his dad, John Yule, was a trainer, driver, and always had some horses on the farm. And back then there was a lot of brood mares and stuff around, and I kind of took a liking to it and ended up kind of following in the footsteps.
Hey, Darren, it's Peter. Thanks very much for coming on tonight. Great to see you. Who were some of the people that helped you get established in the industry? And Darren, your colors, your driving colors, is there a story behind that?
Well, somewhat. As I said, John Yule's colors were blue, yellow, and gold, and he helped me get started, let me jog and train and, learn the ropes. And it turns out that, and I knew this when I started, that John Yule and Phil Pinkney were great friends. And that's how I got to be around Phil a lot. And I, did a lot of shoeing starting off, and I started shoeing horses for Phil, and things just, I learned so much working under somebody like Phil. You just learn so much about horses, shoeing, training, feeding, everything. He's the all-around, he was on last week on your show, and he's the all-around horseman. I mean, any credits that Phil gets, he deserves, because he earned them. Great horseman.
Jerry here. Darren, can you take us back to your first lifetime drive and your first win, and what you recall about those great moments?
I'll always remember my first lifetime drive, because I think it was pretty much a disaster. I never made it through post parade. The mare stumbled, went down right in front of the grandstand. I was adjusting my handholds, first drive. I was nervous, and it was really, really embarrassing. It was like I wanted to hang it up right then, but I stuck with it, and things progressed. And it was actually about 3 weeks later, I got my first win with the same horse. I managed to get her through post parade after I got her knees all healed up.
Darren, we're going to take you to your first of many wins after you got that first one out of the way, and you sure have visited the winner's circle many times. We're going to take you back to 1999 during Old Home Week, and with a 3-year-old pacing colt, Buster Buttons. So let's go to that video now with Darren Crowe here tonight on the virtual Tack Room.
Showtime! They're off and pacing, and Buster Buttons breaks the gate out. Racing second up the rail now is Sunset Josh. Into the turn, Andrew Duncan is third. From the rail, fourth. That is Irish Rebel racing from fifth. As they go by that opening eighth, that is Bucky's Family. Sixth towards the rail is Argo Flutie. Pacing from seventh, Majestic Pines. Now the trailer. That is Income Trust. They all have spots at the hubless rail. And Darren Crowe has Buster Buttons out in front by 2 lengths. Second at the rail is Sunset Josh. Then in third, That is Andrew Duncan. They arrive at that opener in 28-3. Over to 3/8 now. And Buster Button's the leader. Sunset Josh is second. In at the rail, Andrew Duncan continuing third. Up fourth, that is Irish Rebel. Here comes Argo Flutie. Now on the outside, fifth, racing from sixth, Bucky's Family. Seventh, up the rail, Majestic Pines, and the trailer, that is Income Trust on the outside eighth. They arrived at that opening half mile, and boom! Just like that, they're there 57-4 on by 5/8 now. Buster Button's on top. Sunset Josh at the rail, and he's under urging second. Andrew Duncan now is third. Then in fourth at the rail is Irish Rebel. Fifth in the outside, Argo Flutie. Take a look at the front, folks. Buster Button's driving away now. He's clear by 7. 1:26-3 at the 3/4 now. The 8th and the final and the history division. They're turning on home now. Atlantic Sires, and it's all Buster Buttons. Sunset Josh is second. Far outside, Bucky's Family third. Division 8 3-year-old Colt Pacers. Buster Buttons, Darren Crowe. Here they are.
Darren, it's Kent here. Tell us about Buster Buttons, how he came into your stable, and what he was like as a racehorse.
I ended up getting him as a 3-year-old from Donnie Rector and Brad Smith, and I ended up taking a part of him. I owned a quarter of him, and he just turned out to be a sweetheart. He was a great little racehorse. He had I don't know if you look back on his lines, but I had him on the front in the old Summerside track in a Sire Stakes that year, and he put steps in, and naturally I tried to gather him up, and anyway he folded and knocked the whole field down. So every start after that, when he did put steps in, I just chased him out of it, and he just got better and better and learned to go faster and faster, and he ended up being a pretty useful horse that year. I think that year he almost made 50,000, and we ended up selling him in the fall for 50,000. So he went out to Chicago, Balmoral Raceway. Not so sure, but I think he ended up with a record of 51 maybe before he died. So he turned out to be a great little horse. It was a great summer to have a horse like that.
Here's a shot of the Atlantic Breeders' Crown final for 3-year-old Pacers, the very first one in 1999. Buster Buttons won that race for Darren, and he was the betting favorite on that day, and he romped by 11 lengths in 58-3 over a good field. Some of the other participants included Familiar Face. He won the $60,000 Barry McIsaac stake that year for co-owners Norman Legier and Alan Jones, driver Steve Mahar. Hugh Baird's Argo Flutie, he took the $29,000 Dairy Queen final and won 56-4. Second in that race was William Frank from the Dale Sobey barn. Sunset Josh, who we saw in that old home week race for trainer-driver Rod Jameson. Matacarius for Steve Mahar. Harbor View Paganini for driver Walter Chivry. And Darren had a second entrant in that race, River Blaze, that Phil Pinckney catch drove on that day. Buster Buttons earned $47,000 in 18 maritime starts that year and was sold, as Darren mentioned, after winning the Donnie Turner Memorial in 157. He went on where he took a record of 53-1 over the half-mile track at Maywood Park in Chicago with lifetime earnings of over $119,000.
And I think the photo, guys, Scott, if you could just bring it up. Ken, I think you have the names of the people in that photo there.
Yes, I do. On the far left is Collie Sparling, who was, of course, a long-time race secretary and race manager from Cape Breton. When Atlantic Lottery Harness Racing was formed, Bert McQuaid hired Collie as the race secretary for ALC Harness Racing. Third from the left is co-owner Brad Smith. In back, the gentleman with the suit and tie is, of course, Earl Skierman, who was the Atlantic Sire Stakes president. Great fellow, longtime horse owner, raised the MD horses. Darren, of course, Jack Ferguson, the longtime secretary manager of the Atlantic Sire Stakes program. Darren's grandfather, Stan McMillan. Donnie Rector at the horse's head, who was a co-owner of the horse. And on the right is Bert McQuaid, who was the vice president of Atlantic Lottery and in charge of Atlantic Lottery harness racing. That was the first Atlantic Breeders' Crown.
And I'll follow up on that, Darren. What was that like participating in that first Breeders' Crown and actually winning that day?
It was pretty exciting. A lot of nerves going into that one. You know, it was the first real legit horse that I had a shot. And anyway, he ended up prevailing that day. I think Argo Flutie might have been second that day, and he was the other one that I was worried about. But you know, he was good that day for sure.
Yeah, I love those. I love those photos and so many great memories that you have over the years, especially in winter circle photos that you have. I'm going to take you to your next video here, Darren, and this is Rancusi winning the Mackenzie Stake in Truro back in September 28th, 2014. So let's take you through that race video, and we'll get your comments after.
Is Romeo Lover into the lower turn. They head now to the 5/8. It's all Rancusi on the front end. Is clear now by some 6 lengths. 58-1 was the half. They move on to 3/4 in pursuit of Rancusi. Well back second is Mr. Vibe. Outside and moving uncovered Artie's Magic in 3. Fourth out the rail. That is Touch of Thunder. Then back in 5, JJ Laser, the 6th one, Tubbins Fusion. And Romeo Lover is out the back. They arrive at 3/4. Rancusi the one to catch. Mr. Vibe endeavoring to close the gap second. On the outside third, Artie's Magic. Touch of Thunder moves off the rail. Moving up the rail now is JJ Laser into 4. They continue on past the 7/8 and off the top turn. Rancusi out there by 4 with less than an 8 to come. Back to Mr. Vibe second. 129-1 was the 3/4. On through the stretch they come. It's all Rancusi here in the second colt division of the Mackenzie Memorial Stake. In the battle for the place spot, it's close between Mr. Vibe and Artie's Magic.
Darren Rancusi, of course, was a son of Western Paradise, bred by late Don Smith from Truro, Nova Scotia. Rancusi ended up with a record of 49-1, which is a maritime record at the time, I believe. 455,000 in lifetime earnings. He went on to race the Meadowlands, Yonkers, Pocono. Did you expect Rancusi to go on and have the type of career that he had based upon his ability as a young horse?
You know, I wasn't surprised by it. He was a tough little nut. He caused a lot of grief for myself and his groom a lot of days, but he was still a stallion, and the new owners, after we sold him, corrected that problem, and obviously he got a lot better. But he was, you know, he's a very athletic colt, and like you said, like you mentioned, he is a Paradise, and those horses, a lot of Paradise horses went on to do well in the rest of the world. So I was a little bit surprised how good he did, but not overly.
Yeah. You trained Rancusi and some of his siblings for the late Don Smith at Truro. Tell us about becoming involved in training horses for him and the importance of owners like him to any stable.
Oh, Donnie was a great owner. He always come down and every Sunday and had coffee, and you know, was never one to put a lot of pressure on when it came to racing horses, and he kind of knew what he had. And I probably trained 7 or 8 for him over the years, and he was a great guy to have around. He definitely missed, that's for sure, by me. And you know, he was a great guy. He didn't put you know, he didn't put the squeeze on you to say, when's this one going to be ready and how come, and he just went with the flow, and they were what they were, and we had some luck together.
You know, Darren, one of the things that I noticed when we were getting this segment show together, you had so many great horses over the years and so many great moments. And it was difficult to zero in on some of them. But one horse that we certainly want to talk about is Alexi Matosi, who you broke and trained. The horse went on to make 1.1 million, record of 148-1. We'd like to hear your thoughts on that horse.
We picked him out. We bought that horse. We picked him out at the London sale. I think he was 20 or 21,000, and he was trained down okay. There was no flash or dash to him. He just did his work, and he made some money at 2. We sent him to Ontario, and I got him back at 3, and he was a tough horse, man. He didn't like his work, and he didn't like to stay on the track, and he upset joggers and people jogging him. And I think really, honestly, if I remember correct, I think his 5th training trip as a 3-year-old was a qualifier in 2-4. Like, he really didn't like his work, but man, did he ever turn on later in life. And for him to do what he did, it was quite a feat.
Darren, let's take a look at one of those races. We're going to take you back to 2011, the Houghton final at the Meadowlands. We'll watch the race and get your comments after, but here's the race and the race call by Ken Workington.
The half a dazzling 53 seconds. Eric Cash Hanover now slugging it out with Alexei Matosi on the outside. Hypnotic Blue Chip locked in the box. We will see. Well situated second over with Pierce. Might have to come 3 wide prematurely here as they head to 3/4. Foiled again is tracking him, and he's overloaded and fanning to the outside as well. Giddy Up Lucky is buried with pace. Won the West, just 4.5 from the lead. 4th over here, stacked up with 1 more lap, saving all the ground. And then it's Ideal Matters and Vintage Master, a tight pack, and they turn for home. 1:20-1 for 3/4 in the Houghton final. Coming after Eric Cash Hanover. Eric Cash Hanover slingshotting off cover. We will see. Pacing with him though, Alexei Matosi. Giddy Up Lucky looks for racing room. Foiled again is closing along with Won the West. It's Alexei Matosi and Brennan. Alexei Matosi! Tight for second. Foiled again for Won the West. Alexei Matosi and George Brennan with the upset at 8-1 in 1:48-1. The Minister.
What's your reaction to that, Darren? What a field that was. Foiled again, won the West, and Alexei Matosi beats them that day.
Yeah, I mean, and you start talking Houghton finals, that's the best of the best, and he was the best that day. That was a big mile for him, grind out first up on that bunch, but and dig in like he did getting down the stretch. I mean, he turned out to be a real racehorse, that fella.
I think we have some photos here we're going to go to next. Scott McLean with UMI Sports here today. And here's the first photo on the screen, Peter.
We have a photo here of Verona Lilac and her foal. You campaigned this mare for Bill Andrew, with the race winnings going to local charities through the Cheering for Charity stable. Can you tell us about that experience, Darren?
That was a real highlight for us with that mare. She attracted a lot of people to come out to the races and interact with her, and she turned out way better than I think than we actually expected when she came from out west. She ended up going on a bit of a win streak there at one point, and 6 or 7 wins in a row, racing the top class here in Truro. And she was a great, beautiful mare to drive. She had a real quick brush, and you could race her from anywhere. Very versatile. And the people that followed her kept following her, and they really liked her. And she was a perfect horse for that sort of stuff, because if somebody came, she put her head down and nuzzle into them, and carrots and treats and whatever. But she, it was a great for the business to get the people involved in the community, and it worked out really well.
I know you're training at the foal that we see in the picture there. I believe it's a 2-year-old Steelhead Hanover that yourself and Artie Kennedy own on Brennan, I believe. How's it training, and how's the stable doing so far as they train back for 2020?
She's training really well, that filly. She's not overly big, which I don't think a lot of the Steelheads are. She's training well. I've been around 13 or 14 with her last week, and she's gated a lot like her mother. She goes clean, and we're kind of hoping that everything goes right, and we might be able to hit the stake trail.
Peter and I and Kent have had the pleasure of being at your farm there. Tell us just a little bit about that, and the amount of work that you've gone in there, because you have a barn and a track there, and every time we go there, it's always hopping with activity.
Yeah, it's pretty busy here. Good thing Brendan's big enough now to do some work, and he keeps me busy. It was a good spot. I think it was a good investment when I bought it. We got 26 acres here, and I got my track's a little over a half mile. It's got some hills on it. It's got a good sand base. It's pretty forgiving for jogging on. It's basically a jog track. I can't go real fast here, but it's a great spot, lots of turnouts, paddocks, and the horses seem to be racing well from here and training well off the farm. This spring, I moved into the track for a month and a half with most of them and got them trained down. And now I just truck the 2-year-olds into jog and to train twice a week and get them trained up and ready to qualify.
Well, every time we go to Nova Scotia, and we hope to be able to go there again soon, you always welcome us to your property there, and great hospitality. And we look forward to seeing you here competing again sometime soon. So take care, and best of luck with your stable this season. And thanks for joining us tonight on the virtual Tack Room.
Thanks for having me, guys. Good luck to everyone, and I hope to get over there soon.
All right, Darren Crowe, our special guest tonight on the virtual Tack Room, brought to you by Stowe All, Charlottetown, and Fredericton. And special thank you to Sean McIsaac and Kent Ronihan for their show sponsor tonight. I should go back. We're just getting a couple of other comments. Yeah, you can get us on Facebook tonight, and yes, you can get us back on the link. We did have the qualifiers up today, but the virtual Tack Room is there. You can go to redshores.ca and watch the show there as well. Well, this next guest tonight is certainly no stranger to us. He's a member of our Red Shores broadcast team. He's a writer with Atlantic Post Calls, and as you will see, as we know, he's had a great harness racing background, and that is Curt Hughes, and he joins us from his location tonight in Stratford. Curt, good to see you.
Good to see you guys as well, and thanks for having me on the show, and also thanks for doing this, you guys. I've been watching every week, and you've been doing a fantastic job, and it was such a great idea, and it's a great thing to watch every week, with everything else being down. It's just been a great distraction. So thanks.
Well, I appreciate that, Curt. We've been working together for the last number of years now, and as you said, the last number of weeks have been quite the times here. We'd like to get, how you and your family been handling the downtime, and tell us about what it's been like for you in the last number of weeks.
Yeah, it's been going pretty well here. I was staying home as much as possible, doing the homeschool thing there. Professor Hughes here in the house, and let me just say that teachers don't get paid nearly enough.
Well, you look like a professor. We were going to say that that doesn't shock any of us here, that you would take on that role for sure. Let's start tonight with your involvement in harness racing, in the sport of harness racing. Tell us how it began for Curt Hughes.
Sure, yeah. It began like a lot of others in the business with following my father to the track. I was around 12 years old, and he had a really nice colt named Rouge Baron, so I would go there and help him on race nights and paddock, and carry stuff to the paddock and back after the race, and then wash gear afterwards. And then a few years later, my brother Jason took over the stable, and he would track me down wherever I was in my neighborhood playing to get me into the track to help him. He loved that free help. So and then he and I ran the stable there for a few years. So that's how I became involved.
Take us back to your first parimutuel drive, Curt, and your first win. What are your memories there?
Well, my first drive was aboard a horse we had, Denashta Nukes. Jason raced him in the 90s and did quite well with him. He was a good horse for Jason. And then his career was cut short. He bowed a tendon, and so we laid him up, and he was probably off 4 years. 2002 is when I got my license. So we brought him back. We thought it'd be a good horse for me to learn on, and so he was my first drive, and I ended up finishing third that day with him. I remember it quite well. And my first win came aboard a horse owned by my Aunt Cheryl, and Cheryl Bolton, and trained by Paul McDonald. And he was a little horse. He was about the size of a Shetland pony, and so I was looking for that win picture today. I thought it'd be a good one to add. I was driving in Paul McDonald's bike. I was 6'1" in his bike, so you can picture where my knees were. And this little horse in front of me. It was a sight to see, but it was a nice win, a great memory, and we won that night in 59-2. It was Friday night of Old Home Week, and so it was just a great memory.
Curt, it's Kent here. I know Edgewater RB was a special horse for you and your family. Can you tell us a little bit more about Edgewater RB?
Yeah, Edgewater RB, he was kind of a surprise. We bought him at the yearling sale. We bought two colts that year. We bought a horse named Glengyle Halley for 12,000. Then we bought Edgewater RB for 3,000. And so he was kind of a bargain purchase because he turned out to be a really nice horse. But my very first interaction with him was the night after the sale. In those days, the sale was at the Civic Center, and so after the sale, you could walk your horse back down to the barn. So Jason took Glengyle Hal back to the barn, and I was going to take Edgewater RB back down to the barn, and so he was rambunctious all night at the sale, and so I put the chain over his nose, and I was going to walk him down. Well, he didn't like the chain over his nose, and he came at me with the front feet, so he was kind of like that. Funny to be around throughout his career, but he was a good horse for us. He was a good stake horse for Jason. Jason drove him as a 2 and 3 year old, and he was a good horse for us. And then as a 4-year-old, Jason ended up finishing third in the Governor's Plate with him. And then I took him to Ontario the following year as a 4-year-old that winter, and he was a winner at Woodbine, so that was a great memory. And then the next year, I raced him in the Governor's Plate. He won his elimination, was 4th in the final. So he was a great horse for us. A lot of great memories with him.
So we're going to ask Jerry now to set up the 2006 Wall Hennis Memorial and take us through that, and then we'll be able to get the race and some more photos. Jerry?
Thank you, Lee. In 2006, Edgewater RB tried the Governor's Plate eliminations again. Didn't make the final that year, but Thursday night Old Home Week, the Wall Hennessy Memorial, they put together a real crackerjack 6-horse field for $2,500 purse. Yankee Son had the rail for Kenny Arsenault. I Gotta Go, former Governor's Plate winner and former Wall Hennessy winner, was driven by catch driver Wally Hennessy. Coors Life and Terry Gallant had the 3-hole. Edgewater RB with Curt Hughes left from 4. Panzo Silver and Brian McPhee. And Port Hill Alf with catch driver Robert Shepard from the outside. Curt is going to shock them all and return his backers $20.50 on the nose in this one, and 55 flat in the mile. Just an incredible memory and evening that night.
Curt, it's Peter. Tell us your thoughts going into that race. Did you honestly think you could beat that field that night?
No, I didn't. As most nights with RB, he was usually in over his head. We raced the Invitational circuit, so he was usually chasing around Ashton Gale, I Gotta Go, and a few others. So I didn't know what to think going into it. I knew Wally was driving him, and he had the 2-hole that night. I Gotta Go did, and I had post 4, so I was just going to hit the fence. Hope to get a good trip and maybe be part of the ticket at the end of it. But he surprised me that night.
Did you feel it was, before we watched it, did you feel it was setting up for you as the race went along that night?
It was early on in the mile. I got away 5th, and I was trying to get some cover as they were coming to the half. And Terry Gallant moved out with Coors Life, and the cover didn't go too far. So at 5/8, I knew Wally was rolling. I Gotta Go right along. I knew he wasn't sitting in too much to him. So I knew if I could get out around Terry, I might have a crack at him late in the mile. But as they're coming around the last turn, I thought I had a really good shot at getting him, and we get up late and got him there at the wire.
Excellent win for Curt. Let's watch it now. Here it is, the 2006 Wall Hennessy Memorial at the CDP. Curt Hughes and Edgewater RB winning it.
The rail out in the Wall Hennessy Memorial. There's Yankee Son, I Gotta Go. Coors Life, Edgewater RB, Panzo Silver, Port Hill L. 6 noses up on the gate. Here they come. There we go. They're up and pacing. Panzo Silver is leaving out. I gotta go in the middle, and at the rail, Yankee Sun is also leaving here. They're stacked up 3 wide around the turn. Facing fourth at the rail is Coors Light. Up in a fifth at the inside. Turning to the back stretch is Edgewater RB and the early trailer going to the quarter. That is Fort Hill Alp on the lead. I gotta go. Made the front for Wally Hennessy. Second is Yankee Sun. Now third at the rail. Panzo Silver. Coors Light fourth. Edgewater RB is fifth and the trailer. That is Fort Hill Alp. 27-4. Lively here. I gotta go. Clear by 3. In up the rail, second Yankee Sun. Third at the present time, that's Panzo Silver. There goes Coors Light, and that brings Panzo Silver out. Edgewater being the outside fifth, and Fort Hill Alp trailing the field here into the turn. The 5-8 coming next. Opening half is 56-3 around the turn with 3/8 to go. And that's I gotta go. In line to Wally Hennessy. Out in front. Panzo Silver. Right up in the 2-hole now. Coors Light between them third. Edgewater RB. 30 high fourth. Yankee Sun is fifth. And Fort Hill Alp on the outside. Trailing the field. 3/4 up in 1:25.4. Midway around the turn. Final time. 1/8 of a mile out. I gotta go. Taking Wally right down the road here. They're headed down the home stretch in the Wall Hennessy Memorial. I gotta go. Edgewater RB could be the spoiler. Edgewater RB upsets him here for Curt Hughes. I gotta go. Did all the work. Fort Hill Alp drove in to be third.
Well, there it is, Curt. And well, when I was looking back over that race as well, that was quite a move you made down the backstretch there with Edgewater RB, that 3-high move there. And like you said, you really had him rolling at that point, and you must have felt good in the fact that you had a shot to win it.
Like I say, around 7/8, Wally's horse was starting to get a little tired off those miles, and I thought I had a really good shot, and he ended up getting up RB in the final strides to get him there. It was nice, really nice memory, especially the Wall Hennessy, the Hennessy family. You know, I've always wanted to win that race. Jason won it maybe 10 years before that with the Ashton Newt, so it was one I always wanted to win. So yeah, it was a great memory.
Here's the winner's circle, Curt. That must have been some night. Look at the crowd there. What do you remember about that winner's circle photo?
Joe Hennessy there. I'm shaking hands with Joe Hennessy. He was congratulating me on the win and stuff. So right out front, that's you can kind of see Joe there. I'm shaking hands with him out front. But yeah, every year the Hennessy family, you know, they show up strong for that race, and there's such a gathering after the race, and my family's there in the background. And it was just, it's a nice race, and in those days it was an invitational, so kind of a junior invitational. The ones that weren't really good enough for the top invitational always got invited to that race, so it was always a big race in those days.
And this one here at Woodbine, Curt, you said, I believe he went to Woodbine and won there for McDonnell?
That's right. I went up that winter to work with Garth Gordon, and we actually sent Edgewater RB to Marcel Berrios in Montreal, and while I was up working with Garth Gordon, we decided to take him to Ontario to give him a shot. He was racing well in Montreal, so I raced him his first start. I think he was 6th. But I don't think McDonnell gave him much of a shot in that race. And after the race, he raced really well. And McDonnell said, you know, this guy's going to be good next week. And he absolutely was. I think there was like a 7 or 8 horse field, and he got away mid-pack, and he closed home real strong to win there. That's his lifetime mark, 54. And there's a great photo there. This race was incredible. This is Rouge Baron and Vince Polton. It's that colt my father had. This was the 2-year-old stake there at the Don McNeil Memorial. And on the inside, those two horses, in the middle is Blue Time Harrods and Joe McRae. And on the rail is Earl Smith and Denashton Dexter. And those two colts, Blue Time Harrods and Denashton Dexter, they were the top two colts that summer, like the Bearcats of that division. And Rouge Baron was lightly raced because he was an Ontario bred. And Vince Polton got the call this night. Paul McDonald was his driver, but Vince got the call this night, and because Paul had other commitments somewhere else, I think, and Vince got up in the final strides to nail it on the line. There was a great win for our family as well.
Is this you in the winner's circle here, Curt?
That's the Blue Knight. Jason Hughes has him by the head there, and that's me beside him, and Robert Shepard, the other little guy there in the front. That's us. And then there's my dad over there getting the Don McNeil plate, and Jack Quinn is behind us. He was a co-owner of this colt at the head of the horse there. And Cecil Ladner always stood at the back. He's over, you can kind of see his head in between, right above the plate. Cecil Ladner there, the late Cecil Ladner. Anytime he came out to the winner's circle, he always stood in behind. He never wanted to be out front. And there's Art Steva. That was a filly, Ken Susi. When I moved to Ontario, I worked with Ken Susi, and this is a 2-year-old Art Major filly that he had. When I first started working for Ken, he was telling me about this filly he had, and he qualified her at Mohawk 2 weeks before I got there, and Roger Mayotte had qualified her in 2:04, and he was telling me about her, and I was thinking, I think I could run around Mohawk in 2:04, so I wasn't expecting big things from her, but I qualified her in 58, last quarter 28, and I just couldn't believe this was the same filly he was telling me about. And then this is her second start for us. She won in 155 and 4. It was a Canadian season mark for 2-year-old fillies at the time, so it was a nice win.
Curt, it's Kent here. You mentioned Ralph and Ken Susi there. There were some great people for our industry. What was the experience like of being involved with them?
Oh, it was a great experience. Here's a horse here. This is Dr. No. This is my fastest win. We won that night in 152 and 2 at Georgian Downs. Ken, when I got to Ontario, my wife got a job about 45 minutes away from Fourth of Downs, and when we got there, I didn't really know anybody, and so the lady who owned the clinic told me to go to this place called Grasshopper Flats. It was a little training track close to where we lived, and I met a guy named Craig Bars. He's a blacksmith up there, and he trains some horses, and he told me to go see Ken Susi, that he might be hiring someone. So I went there, and I seen this guy's name on the board, Dr. No, and I was thinking, wow, and Ken needed someone, so I started working for him. And Ken and his brother Ralph, they treated me like family. We even went over to Ralph's, watched the Super Bowl one year, and so they took me in. They treated me well. We had a great run. We had Art Steva. She was a really good filly that year. She raced me. She's a great lady, and the 3 Diamond Stake. And it was during the She's a Great Lady that we raced at Mohawk. Ralph was on his way down to watch her that night, Ralph and Ken's other brother Rob, and they were involved in a really serious car accident. They were following a car that had a trailer attached, and the trailer came dislodged and went right through the windshield and did some damage to Ralph, and he ended up in the ICU for a long time. And then a couple weeks later, I was at the barn one morning, and Ken was late getting there. And anyways, Ken's father, Ron, came into the barn and said that Ken was in the ICU, and I couldn't believe it. And he had a bout of acute pancreatitis, so that family was going through a tough time, man. And then I had to get his filly ready, Art Steva, for the Three Diamond Stakes. So I kind of had to take over Ken's stable at that time, and so the experience with the Susie family, it was a great experience, but that was a tough time in their lives, and she raced really well for me. She won her elimination of the Three Diamonds and ended up finishing second in the final. And then the very next week, she won a Trillium stake in Windsor for 90-some thousand, and so that was a really bright time for them in such a dark time. So it gave them something positive to look for in that really terrible time for them. And then the following summer, we had a really great run with our stable, and then my accident happened in the fall, and they went to bat for me too, Ron and Ralph and Ken, so and Paul McDonnell as well, and all you guys too as well. The harness racing community was so great to us during that time. So my experience with them was great, and it was a really memorable time, and I still cherish it. So it was good.
Since then, you've become comfortable in the chair at the Red Shores broadcasts. Curt, what do you most enjoy about your role there as a broadcaster?
Well, meeting new people and getting out and about and seeing all the faces there at the track, it's been great. And becoming good friends with you guys. It's been a lot of fun. We've had a lot of laughs doing it, and I really enjoyed it. And I didn't think I'd find something that gave me the nervous juices flowing before the races after my accident, and it really has. No, it's been a lot of fun. I really enjoy it.
Curt, it's been great having you as part of the team. I know Lee and Rocky and I and Vance, we've enjoyed it because your perspective, being on the track and having that perspective and being able to relay that to the crowd has been awesome, and you've been a great addition to the team. I'd like to ask you, though, who do you think picks the most winners on the show? Because I see you coming in with your notes some night, and some nights you're ripping them up when you're leaving. So I'm just wondering, who do you think picks the most winners when we're doing this all season long?
All season long, if we had to have a count, I'd say you're ahead of me on that count. But during this downtime, I've been watching my old race replays, and a few of the times I watch Edgewater RB winning, Vance usually announces it's the Lee Drake pick of the day. So Lee's not bad at it as well. So it's a toss-up, maybe.
Yeah, well, we've learned a lot from you. I know that, Lee.
Yeah, well, we certainly have. It's been fantastic. I still remember our first call that we had, and we were just chatting the other night, Curt, how the years just seemed to fly by. But to be part of the broadcast team, like you said, and as Peter said, you bring that perspective to the track that we can't, and then the broadcast mesh it all together, and it's just a fantastic time. So we really appreciate it, and we miss seeing you because the downtime. But the good thing is June 4th is coming. And then there'll be more race dates, and we'll have the complete race day broadcast team back at it again soon. So it's just wonderful having you on the show tonight. Thanks very much for doing this, and we look forward to seeing you back at the Red Shores broadcast desk soon.
Excellent. Thanks for having me, guys, and keep up the great work. You're doing an excellent job.
Thanks, Curt.
All right, Curt Hughes, our
Thanks,
special
Curt.
guest tonight. Curt Hughes on the virtual Tack Room tonight as we're getting ready to go for our next segment. And as we talk about Red Shores teammates, boy, I'll tell you, not only is he connected with hockey and with course harness racing, but he's also a member of the Red Shores team of their security detail and has been for a very long time. And tonight, it's a pleasure to have Mike McGuigan on the show with us tonight. Mike, good evening to you.
Hey guys, how are you doing? Really happy to be on here tonight.
Hi, Mike.
Now, I know, Mike, you had a busy day on the track. You were qualifying today. But I know leading up to this, we've had several weeks. I know you were doing some work as well. But what's it been like for you and Aaron and the kids through, the last number of weeks as we've been dealing with things that we've never really had to deal with before?
Well, my routine hasn't really changed a whole lot. I still go to the barn every morning. We have a staple of 12 down there that we're going with every day, and I'm still working my 40 hours a week here. So it hasn't changed a lot. Erin, on the other hand, she's trying to work at home, and the two boys they they get under her skin a little bit, but she's been doing a real fantastic job keeping them busy and doing their schoolwork. And it's different. It's trying times. It's nice having her home for sure, but like my schedule really hasn't changed a whole lot. It's more her and the boys that are taking the brunt of it right now.
Like Mike, when we're putting the show together tonight, the great thing about this is that you've been really putting up some strong numbers over the last number of years. You have a long line of history in the sport of harness racing. And for those viewers that are joining us tonight, tell us how it started and what it was like growing up with McGuigan family, of course, and your start in harness racing.
Well, I grew up like most kids around the track. I wasn't really that great at great at baseball, and I didn't like soccer. I didn't like to run a whole lot. My brother was more of the athlete in our family, so I just hated around my dad's cowboy boots. I was there every day, and when I wasn't playing hockey in the winter, I was at the track. And my father actually bought an old mare. Her name was Lori Fifi off Steve Morton's Snork over in Truro. She was just a real nice mare to be around, and I started to kind of take on the chores with her. Dad would drop me off in the track in the morning, and I'd have to drive my bike up to Birchwood when it was nice, and um, just kind of taught me how to look after a horse and respect an animal, and um, being busy in the barn and having things to do like that kind of keep you out of trouble. I had a lot of people in my life through the racetrack. Paul McDonald was another role model of mine. Bill Henderson, a gentleman, was a huge part of my life for a long time. He gave me a lot of opportunities to actually. Bill was the one that gave me the chance to train my first horse that I trained was Cap Young, which my father ended up driving in the Gold Cup and Saucer. It's a great place to be. You have a lot of people watching over you, making sure you're mind your manners, and I can't say enough about the track, the racetrack, and the community and the people involved in it.
Your dad, Leonard Barney McGuigan, as everybody knows him, has been around the game for a long time. Mike, can you share some of the advice and knowledge that he's handed along to you and that you treasure and has helped you get where you're at today?
Well, I think the biggest thing I treasure, Jerry, is just him, taking the time to make sure that I was okay, and showing me the ropes, and telling me what was right and wrong. It's a big thing. I have two great parents. My mother Brenda is a huge supporter of harness racing, and myself, and she was Dad's number one fan, and then me and Billy were always along for the ride. And it was a great driver. I remember, my favorite times and memories at the track as a kid was watching my father drive horses, and he was really good at it, and he was humble about things, and he made sure that the advice he gave me always was, give it give a horse a chance to get some money, and don't overdrive a horse, and be respectful to the owners and trainers that are there, because those are the people that are putting the time in every day, 7 days a week. And he's just, my father. He's loud spoken. He's outspoken, but he's a big fan of mine. I know he is, and he's a heavy critic too. But he'll be the first one to tell me that if I'm doing something wrong. But he's been an all around real support system, and still to this day, I'm 37 years old. I need to get advice from him every day, and it's always good to know that I'm doing things right when it comes from him. It usually means something.
Mike, it's Kent here. Can you tell us about some of the owners and the horses that helped you get established in your successful career as a trainer and driver?
Yeah, for sure. I have a great core of owners right now. I have Jamie Whalen has been an owner for quite a few years right now, and he's had horses come and go out of the barn. He's always given me tasks and new assignments. I could go to the barn tomorrow and there might be a new horse in the barn. Um, Ingham Jenkins is another guy. He's a big supporter. Um, Jeff McLennan, um, a lot of owners. Jack Quinn was an owner of mine. He had a horse. Him and I had a horse, Fight Master. A lot of people anyone that really gives you a chance, that gives you a shot means something to you. And I had a little mare, when I started getting going driving a little mare named Donaconda. Duncan McKay owned Donaconda, and she was really the one that I think got my driving going. She was a horse that could really bust the gate, and Duncan McKay bought her. Actually, Johnny McKay, Duncan's son's, working for me now. But she was a sweet little mare, and she busted off some big miles old home week a few years back, and things kind of took off after that with her. On the training side of things, I had a lot of good horses. I was really fortunate to have horses like She's a Man and Diesel Sealster, Fight Master, Would Be a Devil, Charlotte Starlet, Panama. I could keep on going. Weekend at Nanny's, Glenn Dunn. I actually drove horses for Glenn, and now Glenn is a part of our team as well and has been for a few years. A horse like that, Ari Shabla, obviously Getting Messy. Any horse that comes in your barn and contributes the way some of those horses have, it always helps you out.
Mike, it's Peter. Thanks again for coming on tonight. Really appreciate it. Want to talk about Getting Messy and the monster year in 2019. Tell us how you first got introduced to this horse and the amazing ride you've had with him.
Well, I got a phone call one afternoon from Jamie, actually, Peter, and he asked me about a horse named Getting Messy and another mare, filly named Setting Day. Didn't really know a whole lot about either one of them. I knew a little bit about Getting Messy just from watching them through the previous year, but I knew Corey McPherson had a lot of doings with the horse. So I called Corey. He's a good friend of mine. I speak very highly of Corey. He's a good horseman and he's honest. And I asked him what he thought of the two horses, and he thought, they would be worth a shot to try. So I called Jamie back, and kind of the rest is history. We had trained them down. Both trained good. Getting Messy, he trained decent. He wasn't a superstar by any means. He wasn't a great trainer. He was kind of a goofy horse, good manners, but just didn't really like his work on the track a whole lot. And the first day he made a break qualifying. Second day we came back and we beat a nice little colt Dusty Lane Titan that Mark Campbell was training. And at that moment, I kind of thought that the horse was going to go on and do some decent things, but I really didn't think that he was going to turn out to be the horse that he was. He was just a real special animal. And John McKay and Glenn Dunn, they did a super job conditioning this horse. I actually didn't do a lot of track work with him. I sat behind him to train him. And John McKay, every morning I would get there, he would be done. He'd put away, and I'd ask John how the horse was, and he would tell me he was good. And every time he went behind the gate, he just was that. He was just a special animal.
Well, I'll tell you how special he was. Jerry's going to recap Getting Messy here and some of the incredible stats for you, Mike, and also the Atlanta Breeders' Crown. Set that up for October 13th, 2019. Jerry?
Thank you, Lee. He sure was a special animal. Getting Messy. I made $33,000 last year in the Maritimes for a 3-year-old trotter. That's pretty special. He started off the year after a break off the qualifier, requalified again, won 5 in a row. including setting a maritime record of 158-3 before the stakes season even began, the fastest trotter in maritime history. Son of Ambrose Barrister would later set an Atlantic Sire Stakes record during Old Home Week, winning in 58-3, while stepping off 7 straight wins, including his win in the Atlantic Breeders' Crown that we're going to queue up here shortly. And then he was sold to U.S. interests after that race. He would add another $24,000 in U.S. earnings after he went to Yonkers Raceway in the fall, lowering his record to 156-1 in mid-December. And he raced, it was just an exceptional crop of 3-year-olds last year. Most weeks there was 3 divisions of the stakes, and each one of them were top-notch and competitive. I remember in Truro, 8 of the trotters trotted in 2 minutes and 2/5 or better. Just an exceptional group of horses. So in the ABC final, we're going to see he's going to face Ya Boy Bear, who defeated him in Truro in 59 flat. Other top sophomores included Rich's Northern Dream. She was a 2-minute winner in Truro for Kenny Arsenault that weekend as well. The last one standing for Brian McPhee had won in 59-1. Dusty Lane Titan from the Mark Campbell stable was second in the point standing behind Getting Messy. Mile Hill Willie, he was a sub-2 winner as well, setting the track trotting record at Summerside Raceway for 3-year-old colts with a 159-1 mile. So just an exceptional group of 3-year-old trotters last year, and virtually on a week-in, week-out basis, Getting Messy dominated by open lengths over a top group. Just a special horse indeed.
Mike, before we watch this, I think I remember you saying it would be huge to win the Breeders' Crown. Am I right in saying that this was an important race for you to win?
Yeah, like I always start off the year with young horses. I very seldom have race horses. Not too often do I have race horses, and you know, to get horses to the races, it's a long winter. It's a long wall grind, and you know, it takes a huge effort and a team effort to get them there. And when you get them there, you know, that's your goal. You know, you made it there, and then your next goal is, you know, to keep them healthy. Maybe get your picture taken, and you know, to win that race, it was very special for me. To have my family there, and Jamie and Janice, his wife, and my 2 boys and Aaron. You know, I didn't start off. I started off with my father in 2005. He had a spinal surgery, and I took over the stables. I had a few horses there, and you know, you don't dream of, you know, ever really succeeding and doing as well as I have the last few years. And I'm pretty humble for the experience that I have had, and to win that race, it did mean a lot to me. I was bouncing off my seat and down the stretch, and I don't know if the horse knew it, but he went in 59-1 that day, and I really don't know how fast he could have went, because he was on cruise control. He was just a good horse.
Well, let's watch it now. Here's Mike with Getting Messy, winning the Atlantic Breeders' Crown in 2019.
Rough and trotting, Getting Messy leaves along the rail. That's Mile Hill Willie. Racing third into the turn will be Dreamboat Annie. The last one standing on the outside's away fourth, and he goes on the run. The last one standing's off stride. Fourth is Dusty Lane Titan, Ya Boy Bear fifth, Able Way sixth, back down trotting on the outside seventh. The last one standing, and the trailer, Rich's Northern Dream. Oh, they're to it and at it and to it on the front end. Getting Messy being carried to the opening quarter by Mile Hill Willie. Back into third is Dreamboat Andy, a solid quarter mile, 29-1. Dusty Lane Titan tipping out from third, Ya Boy Bear fourth. Able Way along the inside, then from the outside, the last one standing, and the trailer, Rich's Northern Dream. Down the stretch they come, arriving next at the opening half mile, led by Getting Messy from Mike McGuigan. Mile Hill Willie second, Ya Boy Bear has gone on the run, and there was confusion in the backfield. Halfway home in the fourth, Getting Messy in 59-3. Second in Mile Hill Willie. The last one standing back into it. Third on the outside. Dreamboat Annie at the rail, fourth. Moving into fifth, that's Rich's Northern Dream. Able Way is sixth. Dusty Lane Titan seventh. Trailing the field, Yeah Boy Bear. 3/4 coming next. Gadden Maxey, the leader by 2. Mile Hill William on the rail, second. Third on the outside, the last one standing. Rich's Northern Dream is into fourth. 3/4 at 90 seconds flat. And Mile Hill Willie has gone on the run. It's all getting messy here. It's over coming for home. The last one standing is second. Rich's Northern Dream third. Getting messy on Championship Sunday. All alone for Mike McGuigan in the Atlantic Breeders' Crown Final. Second, the last one standing. Rich's Northern Dream third. Time for the mile in 1:59 and 1.
Well, there's an opportunity there. There's the high five and a hug from with your dad. And I remember being in the winner's circle that day, Mike, and that was just, as you said, just a very, very special win. How does it feel to go back and relive that race at this moment?
Well, to be honest with you, it's not the first time I've watched it. I've seen that race lots of different times, and every time I watch it, it gets me excited. He was a special horse, and I was fortunate enough to get a hold of him, and I think he would have been a good horse anywhere as he went. And Jamie stepped up and bought the horse, and he has before, and I'm sure he will again. He's, like I said, he gave me the opportunity to get in that winner's circle that day, and a lot of hard work went into that horse with John McKay and Glenn Dunn, and I appreciate them, and I appreciate the horse for sure.
Well, I can tell you how much you appreciate them because before the broadcast, I was talking to you. I wished you best of luck in the race that was coming up. I knew what that race meant to you, and you made a point of saying, you know what, we do win this race. I want you to give a shout out to those boys because those boys did a lot of work, and that just says a lot about Mike McGuigan and how much he thinks about the people that, as we call sometimes the unsung heroes of some of these horses, because they did spend a lot of time with them. So that was a nice touch.
Yeah, for sure.
We have some photos here we're going to roll into here on the photo parade tonight. It's actually one of the best parts of the show that I really enjoy. And Mike, we're going to take you through memory lane with a few of those photos here. Scott's going to roll some in here, and Jerry will lead off the first one, which I believe took place in Truro.
This is a photo of the winner's circle of a division of the $18,000 Stanfield stake at Truro. R.E. Shabla and Mike claimed the fastest division that day. The track wasn't 100%. It was off a couple of seconds, and they won in 56 and 4 off a front-end journey. Second quicker than the other two divisions, with Top Fillies Bedham Jackie winning in 57 and 4. And Royalty West Hull winning in 57-4, the other two divisions. Later in the summer, this filly would equal the track record at Charlottetown, winning a Lady Slipper stake on Gold Cup Consolation Evening in 155 flat. She made over $40,000 on the year for owner Lloyd Parsons of Carmenville, Newfoundland, and was just one of the top fillies that year.
Next, we have a picture, of course, of Barney and Mike and Aaron's two sons, Owen and Isaac. Well, certainly, Mike, one of the great things about our industry is, we often see multiple generations involved. Tell us about the experience of being able to have the 3 generations of your family involved in harness racing.
It's really special. My father has had a lot of health issues over the last number of years. To be honest, he had spinal surgery in 2005, and he's fought and beaten cancer twice. He lost a lung, lost part of his bowel, and to have him around and show people what it's like to persevere and keep going, and it means a lot to me to make sure that he's around, and Owen and Isaac get to see their poppy. They actually made ATV news last week. They were sitting at Nanny and Poppy's house, and Dad was doing a race call, and Owen and Isaac were at the whips. I'm not sure who won the race. I think Isaac got up to win. His older brother might have let him get that one.
Yeah, I love the photos. Mike, take us through this photo here because there's quite a connection. Of course, your brother Billy, who was named Coach of the Year at Summerside with the Western Caps, he's done an awesome job with that organization. I know he's a big fan of you, and you're a big fan of him, and all of Summerside is a big fan of Billy.
Yeah, for sure. Billy, him and I are very close. We have been for a long, long time. He's been there for me. Didn't matter what it was. I had some health problems when I was a younger kid, and he stuck by the hospital bed every single day and never left. I'm really proud of what he has done. And proud every day to call him my brother. He's a great father, a great husband, and he's a super coach. And um, he's very well liked in Summerside. He does a lot of work in the community in Summerside, and to get an honor like that, he was nominated for it a few years back and came short. And this year, him and I were having conversations on the phone, and he's pretty humble about things. And I was really optimistic and hoping that he would get it, but he was telling me that he thought might go out west. And when I got the phone call, I was super excited for him and proud. And that's his wife, Tammy. I would definitely have to say she's the glue that keeps everything going. They have two little girls, Brooke and Emily, and Clarky, their youngest boy. They were actually at our house last night for a sleepover. So that she's a great lady, and of course my father in the middle. I'm not sure what the shirt says. I'm grumpy. Don't make it make it worse. And mom, can't say enough about my mother and Erin, my wife, mother of Owen and Isaac. She's a great woman. We started off together 12 years ago. I had a stable of two horses, and people say, oh, you signed up for, well, I have 12, 12 now. I don't think she signed up for that, but she's a great support system at home for sure. This is a funny story. Kenny, this is the night after the Stanfield back at Charlottetown. I think I spent my 10% that I made that day racing that horse. Kenny Arsenault was there, Aaron. There's a whole bunch of us there. I think Kenny Arsenault might have ate 44 chicken balls and 5 or 6 egg rolls. He still talks to this day about how good they were. They were free too, though. He wouldn't mind that.
All the great stories in the virtual tack room, right? These stories, these stories come out. They're all good.
That's right.
It's excellent. The stable, Mike, we talked about today. You were on the track qualifying day. Talk about your stable for 2020. Set that up a little bit for us.
Well, I'm going with 6 babies right now. I have 4 3-year-olds. The 3-year-olds, I wasn't really excited about them today, but it's going to be a long summer. I have 6 2-year-olds. I have a 2-year-old for Cam McPhee and Judy Ferguson. I have a 2-year-old for Ingham Jenkins, Jeff McLennan, and Jimmy Grant. They own 2 together. A Tobin's Angel filly. She's a Western Terrier filly. She's a real sweetheart of a filly. I'm hoping for big things from her. But they're all going pretty good. I think I've been in 15 with a couple in the card and 18 in the card. So, hopefully if they have a healthy week within the next week or two, I'm going to put them in the bikes and probably go around 210 or 29 with them and see how they go. There's another guy that I never mentioned, and I definitely should, was Mark Pitt Gallant from Summerside. Pitt's been with me for a long time. Is qualified today, JJ Patrick. Pitt's been a super friend and a super owner for me for a lot of years, and I know he's watching, so I thought I better say hello to him.
After your success in recent years, Mike, do you have any goals for the upcoming 2020 season?
Yeah, I don't really have any goals, Jerry. I think, the biggest thing is to stay healthy. Keep the barn healthy. I would like to, obviously have success for sure, but as long as everybody stays healthy and goes forward, I would love to get another Breeders' Crown for sure. We'll see what happens, see what the future brings. But I think I have a decent stable of horses right now, and I'm looking forward to seeing what the future brings.
Well, Mike, I know you've done a great job on and off the track. You've done a great job of getting owners into the game, and you have a long family history with our great sport. And it's just wonderful to take the opportunity to talk to you tonight and have you on the virtual Tack Room. And we want to not only thank you for that, but best of luck during the 2020 season.
Thanks very much, Lee. Guys, I appreciate you just having me on, and everyone out there, healthy racing, stay safe, and we'll see you on the track.
So, Mike McGuigan, our special guest tonight on the virtual Tack Room as we roll along on this Saturday night, and it is brought to you by Stow It All, Charlottetown and Fredericton locations. Sean McIsaac and Kent Ronahan, thank you for your sponsorship tonight. Well, we talked about special guests on the show, and we're really excited to have this future star who won the big Future Star Award during the O'Brien Awards, but he's made quite a name for himself in Alberta, and Dave Kelly is our special guest tonight and joins us on the virtual Tack Room, which I guess around, it's what, 10:20 here. Dave, it would be a little after 7 o'clock where you are?
Yeah, Lee, thanks for having me. It's just a little after 7, so, just had my supper and taking it easy for the night.
Dave, we want to start with, before we get into some of the questions, some of the videos and some great photos with you tonight. How have you been doing over the past number of weeks? Take us through what it's been like for Dave Kelly during a time when the whole country's been going through something that we've never been through before. But what's it been like for you?
It's a little tough to deal with the pandemic and everything else, and our horses, their schedule doesn't change, so we've still kept everything going with them. The 2-year-olds are still training, the 3-year-olds are still training. We kind of gave our race horses a little bit of a break, but the toughest thing is it just feels like Groundhog Day, and at least now with racing starting back up, and it gives us kind of a target to shoot for, because before you're just driving just to go around, and it's hard to really set your horses' schedules up week in and week out, and it's hard to just manage your barn the way you normally would without racing. So hopefully we can get back to it here pretty soon, and it's great to see racing starting back up in Scioto, and you guys get going next week, and that's great.
Dave, I want to start with tell us about growing up in a harness racing family on Cape Breton Island. Share with us a little bit of the younger years and what that was like.
So I kind of had it from both sides, because my mother's side of the family is Campbell, so Hardigan Campbell, Bobby Campbell, my aunt Darlene, and my uncle Roddy, and then dad's side Kelly's, my grandfather Hank and my dad, they raced, and then me and my brother we didn't really have a choice. Like, it was from day one, we were horse crazy, and I always remember growing up and my mother jokingly, supper time would come and we'd be sitting around the table and everything was about a horse, and she just asked numerous times to ask if we could have one supper without talking about horses, but I don't think it ever happened. It's good to, like, Cape Breton and PEI, I really like the idea of, if you're a young guy starting out there, I had a lot of opportunity when I was younger to just go, and I lived just 10 houses up from the racetrack. And so I'd go down to the racetrack, and where you're not as much, here I have my owners and everything else, and it's a lot more of a business, where at home it's just for the love of it and for the passion. And I think that kind of ingrains in your, just the way you do things around the barn. And growing up there as a kid, you get a lot of opportunity with different trainers and different guys that would, let me go out and jog. I'd show up at the track after school on days and I'd go out and jog horses and train horses. And, out here, it's not quite the same opportunity. It's a little tougher to get into if you're younger, because it doesn't have that sort of family atmosphere that back home does.
You mentioned your dad, Dave Crocker, has been involved in the game in a lot of different capacities for a long time. Can you tell us a little bit about what you've learned from your dad and to help you get to the place where you are now, Dave?
Yeah, Dad was big. So when I started kind of like jogging and training and stuff like that, I was actually a little bit younger, and Dad at the time was the general manager and the race secretary and announcer of Tartan Downs. So he was kind of on the other side of things. And then once I kind of got the bug and Colin got the bug, that's when we started getting back into horses again. and we got a couple homebreds and stuff like that we had of our own. And so, growing up, I had dad there. I had both my grandfathers that raced. So I kind of took a little bit from everybody and kind of formulated what I have today and how I train horses and how I view everything. And I'm a big guy that likes to, cross your T's and dot your I's and make sure that you control everything that you can control, because God knows there's enough that goes on the racetrack that you can't control. So if you have all your ducks in a row going into it, at least then you can go in there confident and have those horses racing to the best of their ability.
Dave, it's Kent here. I just wonder if you could recall for us your first parimutuel drive and your first parimutuel win.
Yeah, so my first probably 2 or 3 weeks of driving wasn't really stellar. I think I drove Basin View Lisa, who my brother owned, and then Mr. Aberdare that my dad had the first day. They both had outside post. I don't think I got a check for probably the first 2 or 3 weeks, but I ended up driving a horse for Dan Ferguson and George Rutherford named Will It Fit. And he gave me my first and my second win. I kind of handed out some parking tickets there for a couple of weeks, and he was a fast horse and stuff like that, but kind of needed the front, needed his own way, and so Dan and George were good enough to give me the drive, so I appreciated that, and those are the guys that gave me my first lifetime win with Will It Fit.
I will say this, that Shane Ryan actually sent us a note here today, Dave. He knew you were coming on the show, and he sent us the clip of the Atlantic Post calls story at that time of your first race. So he was the one that sent that in. So he sent along best wishes as well to you there.
Nice.
Well, thank you for coming on. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, you can go ahead, Dave.
Shane's really, grown as an announcer, and I really liked Shane right from the start, and I think he's got a future. If he wants to go somewhere else, he could definitely come to Alberta and announce.
We got to meet him, Dave, earlier this year in Cape Breton. He is a great guy, and want to say hi to Shane tonight. He's probably watching, so I hope you're doing great over there, Shane. Dave, I'd like to take you and ask you just about when you first went to Alberta, what was the reason you went out there, and how did you get involved in harness racing once you got out there?
So I didn't come out here for harness racing at all, to be honest. When I was in university, I had an opportunity to go and work in the oil patch to it would just help offset costs and everything else of paying for tuition. So when I came out here, I worked up north of Fort McMurray for a couple summers there. And then when I graduated, I kind of had my job back that I had when I was working in the summers. So I took the opportunity to do that. It was pretty good money at the time. And from there, I ended up transferring out of like a camp job and stuff, and I moved into Edmonton. I had a job in the city at that time, which is a lot nicer. In camp, you didn't really have a life, and you're living 1 week of the month. But so when I went into Edmonton, it was probably, from the time I was 12 to those 6 or 7 months when I was in Edmonton that I was working up north and stuff like that were the only time that I've never owned a horse from the time I was 12. And I started going down to Northlands, and I met Phil Giesbrecht, and I'd go down there. I'd just kind of warm up, jog, on my weekends when I wasn't working, I'd show up and just be at the barn just because it was something that I loved doing anyway. And then probably 4 or 5 months after that, Phil called me. He had a horse for sale or whatever else. And I said, well, I might as well have something to play around with. And I was still working oil field at the time. And I would work 10 days on, 4 days off, so I could only race the horse every second week. But regardless, I'd work night shift. I'd get off at 6 o'clock in the morning, and I'd go to the barn and look after my horse. And, it's something that once it's in your blood, you can't get rid of it. And, there's no greater feeling than racing horses.
Dave, I wanted to ask you about some of the owners and trainers that helped you get established in Alberta.
Yeah, so when I came out here, I didn't, like I said, I met Phil Giesbrecht, and he was the only guy I really knew. And then I started racing that one horse of my own. And Greg Manning actually got me a contact with Kathy Reed, and I started training a couple horses for her. And Greg was the first guy out here to start giving me catch drives and that, and he put some faith in me, and he had some nice horses at the time. He had Lizard King and Red Star Cashflow, and they were extremely competitive in their class. And so that kind of helped me get started. And then owners-wise, there's probably about a year and a half or 2 years into it where Mike Dix approached me, and Mike's originally from Cape Breton, but he approached me to take 2 horses for him. And, you know, at the time I said, sure. Like I hadn't actually had an owner come to me and say, hey, you know, I want you to train my horses. And so I took 2 for him, and Somewhere in Mexico was probably the first horse that kind of helped me kickstart my own stable, where, you know, we took him, he was racing a 45 claimer in Fraser for a little while there, and he ended up winning 6 or 7 of the 9 and kind of went all the way up to the Open. And, you know, he kind of helped me get started and get situated. And Mike's been a big supporter for me the last 4 years here. And we started with those 2. We kind of picked up a couple horses here and there, and then it all kind of took off when we decided we were going to switch our focus to a little bit of a younger horse stable. We kind of picked up some 2 and 3 year olds, and they helped to kind of build what we have today. And Mike now owns parts of 11. Rick McPhee, he's been with me since 2016 as well. We've had multiple different horses that we had claiming, and he owns parts of 7 of the babies or 8 of the babies that we have now. So then we actually ended up forming a group, the Pick 6 stable. It's me and 5 other of the owners that, you know, we're all a little bit different, but we all kind of fit into this perfect little group that has been extremely supportive of me. And we went to the yearling sale 2 years ago, not having a ton of money to spend, but with the combined group of 6 of us, we bought 3. All 3 have made the races now. We had 2 race at 2 years old, and then we had 1 big filly there that she kind of hurt her tendon there. So we, you know, the boys, like I said, the boys have been extremely supportive. And as soon as she hurt her tendon, we did the right thing for her, gave her time off, made sure that was looked after, and she's come back, and she looks probably to be one of the most powerful horses I have in my barn right now after just qualifying before this whole COVID-19 thing shut us down. But yeah, so between the Pick 6 group, where we have Mike Dix, Rick McPhee, Paul McDonald, Randy Smith, John Birch, myself, we picked up a couple other owners on the way. Cliff and Kathy Coonfer have a couple horses that they bred themselves that I have there, young horses. And, you know, it helps to have that foundation where those guys are always supportive and they want to always see what's right and do what's right by the horse. And that makes my job a heck of a lot easier, because then I can put them first, and it's not oh, it has to race this week or anything like that. We're looking after the horse's best interest, and, you know, that makes my job a heck of a lot easier.
You had some success last year, Dave, with the filly Treasure Horizon, and we're going to watch her winning a division of the Starlet at Century Downs coming up. Can you tell us a little bit about her?
So when I seen you guys send me that question, I immediately thought back to the day. So we bought her at the yearling sale in September, and from day one she showed like a tremendous quick turn of foot. Like, she was so athletic and quick. And so I remember bragging her up to the 5 owners of the Pick 6 group for, I'm going to say, a month and a half. And then it just so happens to turn out that all the guys land there on a Sunday for training day, or I think it was just jogging day at the time, because we were only probably mid-November. And I had bragged her up like she was, you know, she was hands down my favorite, and everybody knew it. But so they showed up that morning, and everybody's kind of on the fence on a windy day, and she went out on the track, and I think I ended up in the center field 3 or 4 times, and I don't even think she made it around the track all the way. She was just completely cantankerous and didn't want to cooperate whatsoever. And I remember going back to the barn and just kind of bowing my head like, oh my God, what are the boys going to think here now? And now I'm bragging this filly up, and she was just absolutely terrible. But, you know, they knew that stuff like that happens with babies all the time, and they're never the same 2 days in a row. And, you know, she proved that she was that kind of caliber when she raced as a 2-year-old, and she won a stake race for us, and she had a couple nice prizes in a few different stakes for us. And I think she's going to come back to being an even nicer 3-year-old as she matures. She's grown quite a bit, and she's a lot stronger now. So hopefully we can get back racing and get our stakes program back going. And she can strut her stuff again.
Dave, going into that race, did you feel you had a great shot at winning that day at Century Downs?
Yeah, she's, like I say, she was such a filly that instantly had that speed and that quick turn. And when we raced her the week before, I kind of sat her back. I didn't want to be first up in her first lifetime start. Like, she had kind of plateaued right around 2.6, 2.8 for probably 2 or 3 weeks before I actually qualified her. And then I qualified her twice because she qualified the first start in 2.2, but wasn't really super impressive. And then, I put her back in to qualify again. She qualified with a Badlands Hanover 2-year-old, I believe, of Connie Coltamers, and she showed a lot of guts going bridle to bridle with her. And then that first stake race, she finished second and kicked home a big last quarter. So I thought she was definitely a player, and it all depended kind of how things shook up. But with her, it was a lot of fun to drive her, just because whenever you moved her off a helmet, those first 4 or 5 strides when she'd leave a helmet and she'd seen daylight, she'd absolutely explode. And, as long as I thought I could put her on a helmet somewhat close, I could kick off and be pretty handy there. So it actually worked out quite well the way the race set up.
Well, let's watch it now. Here's Treasure Horizon winning for Dave at Century Downs.
And pacing, 3 of them out there vying for the early lead. It's Raider Rose with Chasing Shadows protecting position inside, and up from the outside there, Treasure Horizon. She's going to duck into 3rd. From 4th, you've got Anna's Featherfoot. Then it is Blue Star Raquel. She left and got in front of Play a Tune. Trailer in the field is Mystic Curve. It's Raider Rose up front though, where it counts. Raider Rose and Sobe rolling right along in the early going. They open up a quick 4 lengths here on Chasing Shadows. The opening quarter, 27-3. A sharp opener for the 2-year-old fillies. Raider Rose up front. She's loose on the lead. Chasing Shadows trying to close in. Then you've got Treasure Horizon from 3rd. Anna's Featherfoot and Campbell looking at it 4th. There's gaps between here as Blue Star Raquel is gapping a bit back in 5th. In behind that one, Play a Tune. And Mystic Curve can see them all from back there in 7th. Got to be 15 lengths front to back here as Raider Rose sent on the front end mission by Sobe to have 56-4. Quick half here for the baby fillies. It's Raider Rose down the backside. Now here comes from the pocket Chasing Shadows on the attack. Also looking antsy there is Treasure Horizon as she wants to ramble. Kelly says just sit for now as he follows Chasing Shadows. And now it is Treasure Horizon going wide. Coming on as well as Anna's Featherfoot as Raider Rose has thrown in the towel. Here comes Treasure Horizon to take over. And with a brush and a rush, Treasure Horizon opens up 3/4, 126-4. Dave Kelly and Treasure Horizon out by 3 now. Here comes Anna's Featherfoot into 2nd. A very tired 3rd, Chasing Shadows. Even more tired is Raider Rose. It's a 2-horse breakaway here. It is Treasure Horizon, or it's going to be Anna's Featherfoot. One of these two. Treasure Horizon keeping the margin. Anna's Featherfoot trying hard, but she's going to be second best only. It is Treasure Horizon in the 3rd division of the Alberta Starlet. Big effort for 2nd by Anna's Featherfoot. Way back there in 3rd was Chasing Shadows. In 4th for Play a Tune in 156-1.
So there it is, Dave, coming back to the winner's circle there back on August 5th last year. A special win, big crowd that going back to the winner's circle, and like you say, just put in a really good performance there.
Yeah, like I say, that she was so explosive off a helmet. When I moved her 3 wide, it's funny. Mike Hennessy actually hollered at me and asked me to throw him a tow rope. But you can see the guys there. Paul McDonald's at the filly's head there. Randy Smith, Mike Dix was standing back by me at the bike, and they were all excited. And she just developed into a super nice filly, and we've been lucky where if you would have told me 5 years ago that I'd have the caliber of horses in my barn that I do, I'd probably never believe you. But it's a pretty good feeling going back into racing that we have quite a bit of talent there and a lot of nice young horses with 5 3-year-olds and 6 2-year-olds to get started back.
Dave, this is, of course, Bad Blood winning at Century Mile. He's a Alberta sired horse by Custard the Dragon. How did Bad join your stable, and what's he like as a horse?
So me and Mike Dix kind of decided we bought a couple out of down east and stuff like that, and we kind of wanted to go to a younger barn, have some 2 and 3 year olds, and at the time Harold Haining was selling this horse, and we actually bought him he was only $2,500, and he has become the barn mascot. He's quite the personality. From day one, he's had that personality where I remember training him. At the time, I was stabled at Jerry Houdon's farm. And if Jerry Houdon's farm, as you go through the first turn of the half-mile track, all the broodmares are on the right. And this fella here would just be, he'd be going through that first turn with his head turned around, squealing at all the broodmares and everything else. And he'd be going 1.35 like it was no big deal. But as he grew older, I think he learned to be a quick horse, and he's always had the speed and the talent and stuff like that, but for the longest time ever, his gait wasn't perfect, and I'd kind of race him get him into gear late, and for the longest time he was pick up checks and we'd be happy. And then probably midway through his 3-year-old year, he started to kind of finally put it together. His gait got a little stronger, and instead of giving me 1 quarter and 28, he was giving me 2. And into last year, I was even surprised at the time. So Mike Dix owns half of them with me, and he won a mile in Century Downs there in 54-2 or 54-3, whatever it was. And I remember coming back to the winner's circle and Mike asking Fred Gillis, who's the director of Alberta Standardbred Association, he goes, "Can you check the timer?" He said, "Because I don't think that's proper." But he's been quite the nice horse for us. He's got 14 wins since we bought him, and probably I think he's somewhere around 56,000. And for a $2,500 purchase, he's kind of helped me build my barn and, get us a little bit younger. And he's literally a character. Like, if anybody's ever seen him, he's got quite the personality.
Mike, this is Whiskey Throttle. What can you tell us about this horse?
He was another horse that we purchased similar time. I think it was 3 or 4 months after we got Bad Blood. And I remember I think we bought him for somewhere around $3,000. And at the time, he was a big, strong horse and stuff like that, good gaited, but he had a really bad breathing issue. And I remember, I think it was a second or third start. I would sit him at the back and, just trying to get him to just have some confidence in himself and stuff like that. And someone come on the outside of me, I think it was Paul Davies with the horse there, and he was hollering and everything else. And the biggest problem with this guy here is when he would shut his air off and that breathing issue would kick in, he'd panic. So, he wasn't running away with you to be dirty or to be ignorant or anything else like that. Like, he would basically go into hyperventilations. And I remember like I say, third or fourth start, I ended up going up the rail, and there's 3 or 4 horses wide on the turn there. And I ended up in the infield and almost took out the teletimer just past the 3/4 pole because he had shut his air off. And he was a rewarding horse, because when we did finally get him to settle down and realize that, he just had to relax and breathe, he's come around quite a bit. He's got 15 wins there since he started racing in his 3-year-old year. And he's not overly quick, but he's the kind of horse that he can grind out there all day long. And as long as he's comfortable, then he gives you 110%. And Rick McPhee was actually extremely patient with me with him, because if you go back and look at his chart lines, those first 5 or 6 starts, how he didn't want me to just give up, I don't know, because 2.5, 2.6, there wasn't really any glimpses of greatness there. But once he got it and he got some confidence in himself, and he's been, like I say, he's got 15 wins from 47 starts in the last 2 years for us. So there's nothing I can do to knock him.
Dave, we wanted to start with the incredible success you've had on the track. And how about this right here? Future Star Award, the O'Brien Awards. Just take us through what that meant to be nominated and to win.
Yeah, just to be nominated and be part of anything that's the O'Brien category was incredible. And then, like my owners ended up coming down, Randy Smith and his wife, John Birch and his wife, Mike Dix and Sheila, like down there with me to Ontario and kind of help celebrate. Win or lose, we were going to have a good time, and we were lucky enough to win an O'Brien Award. And anytime you get recognized just locally is a fantastic thing. So to go down there and be recognized for all of Canada and stuff like that, it was tremendous, and hopefully we can kind of build on that. And someone asked me, they said, what's the next goal? I was like, well, hopefully someday we can get back here.
I actually sent this picture through for the virtual tack room tonight, Dave, because, and I know even Colin was lead story on Standard Canada earlier today. The Kelly boys are certainly making headlines across the country from coast to coast to coast. But just to have your family there, and I mean, a picture like this has to be pretty special. You're all in your tuxes, you're at the O'Brien Awards. It doesn't get much better than that.
No, it really doesn't. Like, growing up, we were extremely competitive with each other, and it wasn't probably until we kind of got away from each other where we realized that we were on the same team and everything else. And it's been great having Colin, and like, he calls me on his way home from tracks and we'll talk about driving and racing and everything else, and same with Dad, and same thing, I'll call them after I'm done racing and we kind of talk things over. And like I say, it's just a big support system that I've got here, and it makes my job a lot easier. And Colin has done extremely well for himself. I remember at first he was thinking about coming to Alberta, and he wanted to do the catch driving thing, where I like training and I really like young horses a lot more than anything. And I said, well, if you're going to catch drive, and I don't think Alberta's a spot. And he went to Ontario and instantly had success. And I always joke around that he's probably the better driver because he can make a sawhorse go fast when he needs to.
Well, I know your dad was pretty proud in that picture there, and to be there. And I hope you have a special place for the O'Brien Awards. You probably were a little surprised just how heavy they were. I remember the first time I went to the O'Brien Awards, you pick one of those up and they go and hand it to you on the stage. It's quite a trophy. It's pretty heavy.
Yeah, when Adam went to pass it to me, I had to kind of second guess myself there. I almost slipped with it, and I wasn't expecting it to be quite that massive.
Listen, Dave, you know what? We've been following you, and of course your brother and the Kelly family in general, and everywhere we go. I mean, and Peter mentioned it. Vance Cameron and Peter and Kent and I were in Cape Breton a few months ago when the World Team Normal. But actually, it's just been wonderful to follow your career. You're doing a fantastic job, and we really want to thank you for joining us on the show tonight, the Virtual Tack Room, and we wish you much success in your career, and we hope to see you back at the O'Brien Awards.
Thank you, Lee. I appreciate you having me on.
Thank you,
All
Dave.
right, Dave Kelly, our special guest tonight on the Virtual Tack Room. And guys, as we were saying, another fantastic show. I was looking through the script, and it just sort of hit me, we only have one show left. And Peter, when we started this, it seems like we're into 10 shows now, something like that. And each show just gets better and better, and the guests have been fantastic, and the stories have been great.
It's been another great show, Lee, and again, the idea from Kent, and we were fortunate enough that he asked us to join, and it's really come together great. Jerry's been great on the show, you as the host, and me, Lee, just trying to help out every week. Kent's been great as well, and I think the show's been well received, Lee. In a time where we needed something to pick us up, all of us really, Lee, it's been great just to reach out and talk to people, and we've got great feedback. And Lee, the guests have been A1, and tonight was no different. Thanks again to Darren, to Curt, to Mike, and to Dave. All great work, and another great night in VTR.
Thank you, Peter. Good night to you. Jerry McCabe, as we say, wrapping up the show, and it's hard to believe we have this many under our belts right now, and you've been taking us down memory lanes, and there are so many great stories. You've heard many of them in the tack rooms over the years, and the Virtual Tack Room, again, another great show tonight.
Sure was, Lee. Another great group of guests, and very open and willing to share their tales and successes. Just great. no shortage of memory lane items in harness racing for sure. Lots of positive comments about the show. People are getting antsy. We're getting closer to live racing time. Mind you, in a little bit of a virtual way to beginning, but hopefully baby steps will get us where we want to be before too long.
Thank you, Jerry. Good night to you. And over to Kent Oakes, the show creator, and Kent, all the shows under our belt. Some interesting stats this week. We were asking Scott McLean with UMI if we tracked the numbers, the viewers, so over 24,000 on Facebook going into tonight. On the other platform with YouTube, and of course we weren't on YouTube the whole time, but over 10,000 views there. So I think it's safe to say, Kent, that the show has been well received.
Yeah, that's flabbergasted, quite frankly, by the numbers. I think I mentioned when we started this, Bev said, "Well, how many people do you think will watch?" And I said, "Well, if we get 100, I think we're doing really good, right?" But anyways, to get into the 30,000 in views is just amazing. Really appreciated the positive comments from the folks that talked to me down in the paddock today, and certainly want to echo the comments. To have these four folks come on and present in such a professional way to represent our industry. It was great to see them do such a great job tonight. Our four guests, as has everybody all along. So have a good week, guys, and we'll see you at the track.
All right, thank you, Kent. Ken Oakes on the virtual Tack Room. So that's it for the show tonight. The show, of course, brought to you by Stow It All and from Charlottetown and Fredericton locations tonight. Sean McIsaac and Kent Ronihan, thank you very much for your support. I'm checking all the meters here. I'm checking all the comments that are coming in. We really do appreciate that. I am going to end off with, I like to give some type of a positive message as we go through it. You've seen what the strength of Prince Edward Island has been over the past week, and it seems like every time we close down one show and get ready for another one, there's a number of different changes. And this past week, Islanders have really shown that there's a lot of good. There's some not so good too, but I think what's happening is people start to rally around each other, and they certainly rally around some of our leaders. And Dr. Morrison and her team, the Premier and the entire team here, these are not easy decisions to make, and they make them with the best interest of all of us at heart and our health. So on the harness racing community side, let's hope we continue on with all the great work that's been going there. We wish Nova Scotia and New Brunswick the best with theirs, and clearly all across this great country of harness racing as many tracks get the green light again. So stay positive, stay safe, and I'll echo some of the words that come out from a few of the press conferences this week. Be kind. So I'm Lee Drake from the virtual Tack Room. Thanks for joining us tonight. Good night.